Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Profit Matters Live, where we talk about your profit and why it matters. Hey, Ashley, you want to talk about estimating again?
Yeah, let's talk about estimating. Let's also talk today about bill pay. So we talked about lien waivers and making sure that we have the right things in our contract. And so I think one of the things that people are asking us is, one, for estimating, I think we should cover that in a future topic.
Sure.
But for estimating, how do we make sure that the bills that are coming in match what we estimate? So we're going to talk about that upcoming. But right now, I think what's really important is, how do we make sure we're only paying the bills for the checks that came in? And so a lot of construction or contractors, developers, they say we have a hard time keeping track in our accounting of what we've been paid for so that we know when to release payments for that set of bills. So I thought we could cover that today.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that it is technically unethical. I don't know, is it technically illegal to use the money from one project for another project? Yeah, it's technically illegal to do that. So it's really important in construction accounting. Construction accounting is very different from many other types of accounting because, and you have to think about this when you're hiring a firm to do your accounting, because if they don't understand construction, you can get in a lot of trouble. You cannot commingle funds. In a lot of senses, you almost have to think like each project is its own company, right? It's its own job because funds are not permitted to be commingled between those two jobs. So let's talk a little bit more about that. How do you do that on the back end? Let's talk about that first. How do you manage that on the back end? Like in QuickBooks, is that you run the books separately? Do you code them separately? How does that work?
That's the question. That's exactly where I was going to start. So the first thing you have to do, whether you're using QuickBooks, Sage, Viewpoint, whatever you're using, you have to make sure that every bill or invoice that you're receiving from your vendor that goes into the books has a job attached to it. So forget about your cost codes even for a second. Let's start basic. Okay, I did Derek's house, I did Ashley's house, or I built a hospital, or I built a park, whatever it is. We need to make sure that we have the right job. And if you're doing a job, let's say for a city or a county or a government project, or maybe even the same general contractor again and again, it's not for that general contractor, it's for that project. And so we need to make sure that we are first doing all of our accounting project specific. So invoice comes in, we enter that bill into your accounting software, and then we just need to make sure it's coded to a project.
Okay, so that way you can show, it's not like you have to have separate checking accounts for all these things. It's just the money can go into the same checking account. It's just the payments in and out have to be dedicated to those projects. And the reason for that is for protection from the consumer, for protection for the consumer and the subcontractors, because you want to make sure that they get paid for the work that they do, and that they are paying for the work that is being done on their home, not the work that's been done on somebody else's. You see this all the time. There's you watch your local news for a week, and I guarantee you there's some story about a contractor that took my money and ran off, and the contractor is now bankrupt, and there's this whole hullabaloo. I mean, that's not technically even possible for that to happen in construction accounting if your accounting is being done correctly. And listen, if you're a consumer, make sure that you're working with a reputable firm. You know, the guy that I love Nextdoor, but I have to tell you, whenever people were desperate for contractors here a few months ago, it was like everybody and their brother, their wife was on Nextdoor going, well, my husband can do the work, we'll pour the concrete for you on the weekend. And people are like, yay, I saved $50, yeah, maybe. So what are the best practices around that? How do you do that from an accounting department perspective? You can't just, when you get an invoice now, you have to think about how you enter it in against that. How does that work, Ashley?
That's right. So many people come to us and they say we're doing proper job costing. But then if we run their financial statements and we look at them by job, which you can, no matter what accounting software you're looking at, if you're listening today, run into your accounting office or send your accountant an email if they're not there and say, hey, can you run my profit and loss this year to last month by job? What you don't want to see is an unspecified column in the cost of goods. So your cost of goods, your material, your labor, your subcontractors, your equipment, you want all of those things to go to a project. Of course, your rent, your vehicle, like if you're leasing, repair and maintenance, your fuel, all of those things, unless fuel's job related. But those things below the line, your marketing, advertising, those things will not have a job. But everything in cost of goods could do a double check with your accounting firm every month or your accountant and just make sure that everything in that category has a job allocated to it. Like we said, it doesn't need to be a customer, it needs to be the actual project. And so we see that project. And then what happens is I get paid for Derek's project. Derek writes me a check. And then I want to go in and I want to pay the bills for that project. But then this is where contractors go, well, I don't know. How do I see the jobs that are open for that project? So we'll talk about QuickBooks for a second. In QuickBooks, you can set up a custom report. There's all kinds of custom reports. Your accountant can do that for you, and you get in there and you do unpaid bills, and then you add by job. And so now you have all your unpaid bills by project. So what happens then is that doesn't translate over into, let's say, Bill.com. So we're big fans of Bill.com. We do really like it. Doesn't work for all things. It's not awesome for construction because we can't go in and we can't look at projects. Unpaid bills by project. We can only look at unpaid bills by vendor. So the problem is we click on like rental one, for example, and then boom, here's all the rental one, but you can't see what job. So make sure you're asking your accountant, no matter how you're paying your bills, if you're printing a check or you're paying it in Bill.com, look at my unpaid bills by job. Whoever your project manager, CEO, COO, whoever it is that knows what project we just got paid for. If you're not sure, select those jobs that cover the same period also, and then we release payment for projects. Really cool. We just partnered up with some guys over at InBuild. They built a bill payment system similar to Bill.com, but made for construction. So you can add your project. Nice. You can do your pay applications. You can see what bills are unpaid by job. And so it's really cool. So we'll have Ty on here on our next
What is it called? InBuild?
InBuild? InBuild.ai, I believe. So check out InBuild. Check it out. They built this for general contractors, for accounting firms to be able to manage construction payments. And so it's really cool because if you go and you enter the project and then you enter the amount you estimate, let's say from the plumber, then it automatically, once I'm getting the plumber's invoices, it's, yeah, I'm 50% complete. I'm 100% complete. And it's adding that to pay applications. So when you submit the pay application on the other end, I mean, they thought of everything. The guys were in general contracting. They went, man, we're just banging our head against a wall. There's got to be an easier way. They built this product, and it's actually really great.
That's very cool. All right, well, we'll have him on the show because I think that would be interesting to hear more about that. So what are some of the best practices? I mean, how do you do this if you don't have a system like InBuild and you're a small, construction company? I mean, is this something that you can do on your own, or do you really need an expert to do it?
If you had a spreadsheet, then you could put all of your bills that are coming in by project. So let's say I get a bill from Rental One, like I said, and then I get one from Home Depot. I just need to make sure that I'm putting that under the project. If I were doing it in a spreadsheet, I probably would tab out my jobs at the bottom, and I'd make sure that invoice went to that project. And then when my check comes in, I'd go, okay, let me look at the tab for Derek's house. That's my project. Or if it were a big, even commercial job, like let's see the Walmart repair I did out front, and I click on Walmart. Well, these were all my bills that I owe outstanding related to my Walmart project. And I'm going to make the check and pay for all of those things. And so we're just trying to make sure that we're paying in the same period, and we're also paying for the right project. And so when I say period, let's say that we billed Derek 4 times. And let's say that Derek is the CEO of Walmart. And so we sent Derek 4 bills, and Derek's got all 4 bills. Well, he only pays us for the first bill. We also want the invoices that were in that first run. And so we're usually covering a period of time for work, especially for a general contractor. We're covering January. So we pay all the January invoices with a January check. And then we get Derek's February and March together. And so now we catch up February and March. It's just really typical. So we're usually trying to hit that period, which was the other cool thing I saw in InBuild was it does show you the period of time that you worked. And so I was like, okay, well, that's cool, because you're not just even saying I want to pay the bills for this project. You're going, okay, I know what period that was in. I'm paying all my October bills with my October check.
That makes total sense. Does that apply to real estate as well? Like when you're talking about things like, deposits? I mean, I guess real estate and construction, sometimes there's a lot of similarities there because a lot of construction companies work for real estate companies. A lot of real estate companies own construction companies. How does that work when it comes to real estate and things like deposits and those kind of things? Is that very similar?
very similar. So I would say real estate is a lot of time the developer, and then they're either selling the property or they're keeping it. So during development, they're usually working with a general contractor and they have a bank loan. And so it's all going through the exact same process until we get to the point where we have our certificate of occupancy and we're renting those properties. And then that's whenever it kicks over to really like real estate, where we're collecting rent and we're doing repairs and things like that. And then that gets into a whole different animal where you're still hiring a general contractor whenever somebody moves out, unless you have a make ready team. And so you run into these exact same construction things on that end, like we're painting because someone moved out of an apartment. Well, we fall into all of these same categories where we want to pay when paid. And so it's all hand. The only difference would be when we get over there and we're collecting rent, we're talking about like a rental agreement, right? It starts, you run into like real or commercial property. So you have that side of like the actual rental versus like we have, we're and doing construction or remodel on places.
That makes total sense. And I think this is a good breaking point because we'll have InBuild on the show and talk a little bit more about this. But I think really what it comes down to is if you're in the construction business and you need a little bit of assistance, because this is not just pay the bills out of the same account. You have to manage things separately in order to keep yourself in compliance and keep yourself out of trouble. Profit Matters is there to help you if you need that kind of help. Yeah, very good. Anything else in closing, Ashley? I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me. I think it's short, sweet. It's to the point.
Yeah,
just do it. You got to do it right.
Profit Matters can help. I mean, even if you have an internal accounting team, you could outsource just your accounts payable, and we'd be happy to help you. That's usually time consuming where we're entering bills and we're figuring out how do we write checks. So we take a lot of those in big construction companies and we say, okay, there's a way to automate this and let's use a software and do something a little different. And so we have all kinds of options out there that work for different people. And so, we'd be happy.
That's awesome. All right. Well, we'll see you all next time here at Profit Matters Live. In the interim, check out profitmatters.co and find out more about all the accounting services that we can provide you. Until next time.